Burr Stewart here with my continuing series of model railroad videos. This is number 84, and after some standard gauge operating sessions, we decided to run the narrow gauge down from the town of Opportunity all the way down to the base camp at Delta Yard. So here we'll show you how we made it all the way down to the yard, as you can see here, blowing the horn along the way. So let's get started. Up at the town of Opportunity, there's an old mine with a little dusting of snow on it. And we have this train of gondola cars that we're taking down to the lower deck, you can see in the lower right-hand corner. And it's going to take us a while to get all the way down there because the track circulates around a loop. Several helices that are built into the peninsula there, where I have the furnace and other parts of the house infrastructure. Looks like we spilled the gondola load there on the track. We'll have to repair that soon. And we leave this upper deck across a very tenuous temporary bridge and into the first tunnel of the Helix. Down to the right below there you see the town of Hope, which we're going to blow right through today, but someday we'll do a video just on the operations there. You can see a west side caboose that Jim Vail built, and I was able to pick up at a swap meet. Now we're coming by the logging camp with the water tower. And then heading around another loop. And while we were running this, as you know from some of the other videos I've posted recently, Dave was exercising a Grinstein green diesel. And Aiden was playing with an RS-11 down in Bayside Yard. These, of course, are standard gauge. And this is a beautiful engine. We haven't weathered it to the standards we'd like to, but for now we'll just say it was recently repainted from the original Northern Pacific paint. And of course he's heading in towards the engine terminal there at Bayside Yard in Everett. Now, having passed through the town of Hope, we go through some rock cuts and past some elk. See if you can see the elk that are grazing around in the wilderness here, in between the trees, and approaching a trestle that leads to the town of Paradise. The trestle is an old Campbell kit that I built when I was 14 years old, sometime in the 1960s, and it's still in service on my layout. I originally built it as a standard gauge trestle, but then when I saw that I could use it here for the narrow gauge, I pulled up the rails and re-spiked them for narrow gauge. That's a nice trestle. Now you can see we're pulling into Paradise, and we're going to stop and see if we have any train orders. There's an operator, an agent in the station there, and so we'll pull down to a stop and go in and check for orders before we make the final loop down to Delta. You can see it's a busy freight terminal there. All right, well, we didn't have any reason to wait, so we just headed right on down to Delta Yard along this last spiral helix. It's amazing what you can do with just a little bit of scenery and a very narrow shelf to make a scene look pretty realistic. And as I've mentioned before, a lot of this roadbed was just 1/4-inch plywood, but it's working fine. These trains are not too heavy. This last spiral is dual gauge so that we can temporarily shove standard gauge cars up there during operating sessions when we need more room for them. But otherwise it's the narrow gauge mainline. And you can see the sanding tower there, and eventually we'll have a water tower as well. And that little blue LED is one of Seth Newman's brakemen.
Okay, yep, I can do that. Let me fire up the throttle. Let me, get rid of,
And that brings us to the end of this quick run of the narrow gauge main line on Burr Stewart's Burlington Northern HO and HOn3 layout. I hope you've enjoyed it. You'll come back and look at other videos on my channel.
Currently, there's an article.
And for now, this is Burr Stewart, wishing you much fun with trains.
Currently, there's an article I saw online that apparently for engine maintainers and mechanics on for being